How do you know you look like him if it's a book?
No, Ernest Hemingway was a real person.
Oh, Hemingway.
Yeah.
I thought you
You thought the old man in the sea? I don't know what he looks like. He lives in the mind's eye of everyone who read that book.
Yes.
Why would Bitcoin.com want to do a Twitter client?
We're going to talk about that, Will.
It's to spread propaganda.
Now, you don't know that.
Well, it's what that site does, right?
Oh, no. Come back. Is it on?
Yeah. I don't need to say anything.
Okay.
I was trying to make them use now. So it does that.
I'll use it now in the short term. All right, I got 5:01. You guys ready to do this? All right, 5 p.m. local time, Tuesday, January 10th. What year is it? 2017. I think I was in a time warp or something. 2017. Holy, it's even the second week of 2017. Oh my God, the whole world is going quicker and quicker and quicker. We have got a great show for you tonight. A really big show. We're going to talk about lots of things. We got a new Bitcoin-powered Twitter. Have you guys heard of this? It's called Birds. Birds. You can get paid to tweet. If you've got a massive following, like our friend Willy Woo here, you can make a mint. And that's actually why we're promoting Birds, so that you can make more money with your...
I looked into it.
Speaking of Willy Woo, we've got Mr. Woo in the house. Going to talk about some of his latest posts. And there's some good stuff, some new graphs, some new pretty graphs. He's even using different colors in his graphs, so you're going to want to stick around for that. There's bigger bubbles this time. Bigger bubbles, different colors. Some of the graphs go down and to the right instead of up and to the left. Up and to the right, down and to the left. Yes. Yeah, so stick around for that. We're going to go around the world. Today we're going to go all the way to Indonesia. All the way to Indonesia.
That's a 360.
From Bali. We're going to travel. We're going to use our mind's eye to travel to Indonesia all the way from Bali. And we're going to go to China. China, Donald Trump's favorite country, China. We're going to go visit China. Oh yeah. Oh, Putin's his best buddy. Yes, that's right. Yes, I stand corrected. Okay, let's kick things off, folks. Let's see what we got going here. So, folks at home, we can see the Telegram group, so jump in there. You guys can help me keep an eye on the Telegram group. We'll see if the Peanut Gallery jumps in. Let me
Peanut
see.
Gallery is here.
this is the Peanut Gallery? All right, I think everybody at home is now seeing what we're seeing, thanks to the magic of technology. All right, the filter, number 109. Let's kick it off here, guys. All right. So we're coming to you live from Bali. We do this every Tuesday night at 5 p.m. And we congregate here at the bitcoinsinbali.org website. Wanted to make you aware, local news, guys. We've got classes coming up this Saturday, 10 a.m. in this very room. We're going to have Bitcoin 101, where we take your noobs, your green Bitcoiners, your people who don't even know what Bitcoin is, don't know how to spell Bitcoin. It doesn't matter. We will take them from 0 to 100 miles per hour in one morning. They will arrive with not knowing anything about Bitcoin, and when they leave, they will have Bitcoin on their phone. And then we go to lunch and turn the Bitcoin into food. magically turn Bitcoin into food. That's the culmination. That is the practical exercise they do in order to graduate Bitcoin 101. That happens on Saturday. The other thing we coordinate on this bitcoinsinbali.org website is this get involved. Get involved with what? What are we getting involved with? Well, we're building a Bitcoin economy, a Bitcoin-friendly paradise in Bali. We need your help. So if you're interested in helping us sign up merchants, work with our website, create media materials, create how-to guides, we're doing all of that in order to create a circular economy for Bitcoin, where people are maybe earning Bitcoin, spending Bitcoin, using Bitcoins on their phone, merchants accepting Bitcoin. Anyway, that's what we are working on here in Bali. We're trying to make that happen. It's a bit of a social experiment, and we need, it's a big party. It's a lot of fun. Go to bitcoinsinbali.org/get involved, and you can learn more about that. Also, we've got this, well, a lot of you guys know about the public Facebook group, but this is a secret group. Isn't that intriguing? Don't you want to be a part of something secret? We got the Bitcoins in Bali lab. There's me before I grew a beard, thinking about how to make Bitcoin successful in Bali. This is a smaller group of people that we get together and try and troubleshoot, kind of figure out what we need to do next, and figure out how to make the social project a success. If you're interested in getting involved, you can see me after the meeting today, and we can maybe get you into the secret group if you pass the muster. Speaking of the Bitcoin economy, here, this little graph created by Willy Woo himself is a real-time graph of the Bitcoin economy. And I just wanted to point out that we're struggling a little bit since all of the volatility is happening. I think people don't like to spend a lot of Bitcoin when the price goes up and down by 4 or 5% in a day. And especially when people are expecting the price to go up, I think maybe they hang on to their Bitcoin. In any case, you can see kind of a downward trend in the number of Bitcoin transactions that are taking place. Also, our Bitcoin machine is sick. So there is another Bitcoin machine down in Kuta, which is still accounting for some of these transactions. But our Bitcoin machine here in Ubud is on the blink, being repaired as we speak. That's also probably hurting the number of transactions that are possible. Moving along. All right, let's talk about Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin. We're in Indonesia, and you can see that the Bitcoin price in Indonesia is about 12 million Indonesian rupiah for one Bitcoin. But in terms of dollars and cents, the global average is about $910.25. Is that what I'm saying there?
35.
Oh, and 35 cents. Now that's the global average. The USD is a little bit lower, down right around 900.
So that Indo, that's the USD to Indo exchange rate, not the Indo exchange rate.
I don't know. I don't know exactly where they source their price, but this is their representation of the going Indonesian Bitcoin price, 12 million, 12.1. I don't know. I think, what are you going to check it out, Will? Are you going to do a on-the-fly calculation?
Yeah, I know.
Will's on the case. When the price was going wildly swinging up and down, there was a mental barrier at 15 million rupiah per Bitcoin, and I remember I looked at the Indonesian Bitcoin exchange, and there were 16 Bitcoins on the upper side of 15 million and 24 Bitcoins on the lower side. Like basically there were two mountains of pending transactions on either side of 15 million. So watch for that the next time we have a rocket ship ride for Bitcoin, because that's definitely going to happen. Here's what's happened over the last week. You guys see this? We went. This is in U.S. dollars on xe.com, but we went over 1,100 U.S. dollars and then had a bit of a correction. So this is since the last time we met. That's kind of a crazy swing there. How low did it go? What did it go? Oh, it went down all the way to 830, 827. So several $100s worth of swing in 1 week. How many people got a little queasy this past week?
It dropped to 9 million, on the Indo exchange.
Yeah.
When it crashed, it was crazy.
Yes. Who sold all their Bitcoin at 9 million? Anybody in the room sell everything at 9 million, thinking that we were gonna, I don't know, Bitcoin was failing? Hey, E4, come on in, buddy.
Thanks.
All right, good to see you.
Having me.
Celebrity gathering.
Yes, it's a big night tonight in Bali. So no speculators, nobody care to chime in on why we saw such a wild fluctuation. We're kind of in new highs right now. So is the world trying to figure out what the new value of Bitcoin is? I mean, we've got everybody who bought Bitcoin and held on to it is in the green.
It's very happy,
Yeah.
especially if you bought in 2015.
Yes, during the doldrums, right? Here's why Bitcoin price fell so sharply last week. This is according to Fortune magazine. Bitcoin price took a steep dive on Friday after China's central bank cautioned investors to take a rational and careful approach. Rational and careful. It's important to be both rational and careful. To investing in the digital currency, the price had surged to record highs. That's true. The central bank's comment come as Beijing escalates a campaign to check capital outflows and slow the depreciation of the yuan currency. So we talked about this last week. There's a confluence of events in China. You've got the devaluation of the yuan, right? And there's lots of evidence that China is trying to maintain the value of their currency versus the US dollar. And there are rumors that Trump may brand China as a currency manipulator because the common understanding is that there is a motivation for countries to devalue their currency. Why? So that their exports are more attractive. So if one devalues their national currency, that means everything you produce in that country is less expensive. So you create economic activity. All that Chinese crap that they're sending to Walmart is a little bit less expensive when you devalue the Chinese yuan. And, Trump is against the TPP. Is that the one that's happening in the? Right. So that's the Asian one. He's more for bilateral trade agreements, meaning that the USA negotiates with China, the USA negotiates a separate agreement with Japan, the USA negotiates a separate agreement with Indonesia, and with that comes the moniker of currency manipulating country. And it's not good for those bilateral trade agreements. And Trump has been, rattling his cage about China being a currency manipulator. So keep your eye on that. This is in Fortune magazine, and one of the things that's driving the Bitcoin price is the conceit that Bitcoin can be used to defeat Chinese capital controls. So if China is devaluing their currency, Bitcoin is more attractive. And if the people in China would like to take their money outside of China, there's a approximately 50,000 USD cap on what they can take out of the country. And some people hypothesize that a Chinese citizen might want to use Bitcoin, put it on a USB drive, stick it in your back pocket, and travel abroad. So that's what's happening here. They're interesting in this story. They talked to Tommy Lee? No, that's a drummer for. Who's the CEO of BTC China? Jimmy Lee?
Lee, I think.
Yeah, Lee, but not Tommy Lee. Bobby Lee. That's it. That's the one. Anyway, asked if BTC China had received direct pressure on outflows, CEO Bobby Lee, there he is, who founded BTC China in 2011, says, no, not as of yet, nothing verbal or written to us. In Beijing, the People's Bank of China told two of Chinese other big Bitcoin exchanges, Huobi and OKCoin, not to mention the depreciating yuan when advertising their platforms. That's kind of interesting, don't you think? This is something that it's hard to imagine in the United States, like Donald Trump showing up at Ford and trying to mess in their business. Oh, wait, that is happening. Oh, I thought that only happened in in communist countries. Anyway, it's interesting that they are showing up at the Bitcoin exchanges and saying, "Hey, keep it on the down low about the whole yuan depreciation thing. We don't want that to get out." Of course, I think people who are thinking about these things are probably well aware already of this possibility, but I don't know. There's a billion people there. Maybe some of them don't know yet.
I don't think so. They went through the revolution.
Yeah.
Wasn't there some Mexican intervention stuff?
What happened in Mexico? I didn't catch that. Something. Are you going to do a little Google for us? You can do that a little on the spot.
Intervention by the Mexican central bank
In China?
on the USD MXN when the Bitcoin price was.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow, I missed that one.
Mexico is intervening in the market. Central bank Garcia says.
Mexico's intervening in the Bitcoin market? Well, they need to save up to build that wall down there. So they're probably like...
Break the wall.
All right, what else is happening in China? While it's possible to buy Bitcoin with yuan and then sell it abroad for a foreign currency, BTC China's Li said, to be honest, not many people were doing this because of the cost, because Bitcoin is trading at a premium in China. Why is it trading at a premium? One might think that it's because of the devaluation of the yuan or the inability to move money in and out of China, but according to Bobby Lee, doesn't think that's what's going on. Let's see, the renminbi price of Bitcoin carries a premium to the price of other currencies, he noted. In addition, buy or sell orders in the 100,000 yuan, or about 15 grand, to 1 million yuan, 144,000, and up would influence the price on the Chinese exchanges. I thought that'd be interesting to you, Will, given that you ignore all Chinese exchange data. It seems that those seem like pretty low figures to affect the price on the amount of volume that takes place on Chinese exchanges. What do you think of those numbers?
What was the low figure?
14,000, 15,000 US dollars versus 145,000 US dollars. Because I know in some of the graphs I looked at, you exclude Chinese exchange volume because it can skew your graphs by like 10x or to 100x, right?
No, I usually say it should be included. It's Bitcoin, what's that? Coin market cap that ignores it, right? But some of the graphs use that.
They use the API data from Chinese Bitcoin exchanges?
Well, some of my graphs well, usually I have both, but yeah, the thing with the Chinese exchanges is like, for starters, I think a lot of it should be legit. Like they say, a lot of it's fake volume, a lot of it's Chinese volume, but
well, I think it is. It's interesting. I was watching a YouTube interview with Bobby Lee about 2 years ago, and he was arguing strongly that most of the volume was fake.
Most of it,
all exchanges except his, of course.
Right.
That, I mean, it's generally considered that the order book is pumped up.
Well, in the Chinese exchanges, there's zero fees,
right,
and so they only make withdrawal fee charges,
right,
and that reduces the higher your volume. So you get a lot of people buying and selling at neutral profit just to get their fee lower. That's where the faking's coming in. But yeah, it's like some of it's legitimate, but we don't know how much because we don't get the published withdrawal data. But we do see the blockchain data.
But also blockchains, once it comes out of the exchange, it's off exchange.
It hits the
transaction.
It hits the blockchain, and so you can see that. And I've got a graph somewhere that shows. It's in one of my tweets. Somewhere. It's got the blockchain versus Chinese volume. Chinese volume's going up like this. All other exchanges in the world's going up at that level. When I say like that, that's the slope of it is the compounded growth rate, not shit. It's already 99 to 1%, but it's growing at least double the rate of everything else.
Anyway, last but not least, if I pack a suitcase and take a plane to the United States, do the clothes, does the computer in my suitcase, does the watch I wear count towards capital flight? He's commenting on the fact that the Chinese government regards Bitcoin as property, right? And so it's not a currency, it's not legal tender, it is property, and so that leads one to wonder, you know, does capital flight also include your watch, your Gucci clothes, your sequin shoes? I don't know.
Isn't it rather a strange idea that it's capital flight, given that Bitcoins reside globally on a network of computers? They're not, you know, they're not physically, specifically residing on servers in China. I mean, they're everywhere. So
yeah, it's kind of the old paradigm or old metaphor on a new idea, and it doesn't really quite match up. I mean, if you have, let's say that you have the keys in your brain, you know, you've got a brain wallet, you know, and you talk on the phone and you tell somebody, you know, across the world your key. Does that mean that the capital has flown?
What about intellectual property? You'll be carrying that around as well.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it
I don't have much of that, but I hear it.
the flight happens when it's
Maybe
the
they
exchange.
consider capital flown. Maybe you could define that as when renminbi is sold for Bitcoin. Possibly. I mean, I don't know how you can define
It's the exchange, right? It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah, you can consider it flown when it has been converted from renminbi into Bitcoin, right? Because then it's in the ether.
and the other way around when it comes out. It's the same as me sending a message to you on email, right? It's the points where it enters and exits the internet. That's the flight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Did you say jurisdiction?
Jurisdiction. Yeah, exactly.
Here's another interesting little factoid. Exchanges in China say they account for more than 90% of global Bitcoin trading, which would help explain why a shift in Chinese demand would sharply affect the price. There's some speculation or a little bit of a thought experiment going on. What if China were to say no more Bitcoin or Bitcoin is illegal? What would happen? And I think it'd be a bit of a traumatic thing, but I don't think it would kill Bitcoin.
Do you know what would be interesting?
They've
is
even
to-
been able to do that.
Well, I mean, they could say it.
They could shut down the exchanges.
They could say it. They could shut down the exchanges.
But like, how many of the traders on the Chinese exchanges are international, not Chinese? We don't know that. Because a lot of the traders go to Chinese exchanges because if you're trading, it's zero fees.
But isn't it quite hard to open? I mean, I've opened an account to Bitfinance in the past,
Yeah.
but that's in Hong Kong, isn't it? But it's quite hard for non-Chinese traders to open accounts.
I could be trading Chinese CNY, Bitcoin to Chinese yuan.
Right.
Could do it in like 10 minutes.
So you can open an account from China.
Online, send Bitcoins in, I'm trading. I could trade
That's
millions,
interesting.
right? In 10 minutes with no real, well, you might need KYC, right?
Yeah.
No, but that's only for withdrawals.
Right. Okay, that's interesting.
When you say they can shut down the exchanges, I mean, which parts? Like the domain name, it's a Chinese one, you mean, and the interface with the banks? But you know, they'd be able to shut down certain parts. But
They sit in China, the company's sitting in China with banking relationships.
Yeah.
So they, just like any exchange, a country can say, that's illegal, shut down.
Why are they visiting in China? Given, I mean, like, do they need to be visiting in China?
I guess it would be a good idea to be in the country that you're serving. But like Indonesia here, it's in Indonesia, but they might, if they, you know, technically they could shift overseas if they get outlawed by banks here.
I mean, you have seen this happen when Australia had a double taxation thing going on with their Bitcoin. It was like double VAT whenever you did a Bitcoin transaction. There were companies that up and left Australia because it was a poor regulatory environment. We also saw this in New York City, or in New York, basically the state passed the bit license laws, and companies detected IPs from New York and just didn't allow any customers from New York, and companies up and left New York City because
But you know what? I think it's like Chinese government is in charge of CNY as a currency. So if you're going to do an exchange that's going to do Bitcoin to yuan, they have control over it because they can tell any bank to shut yuan down if it's going to a Bitcoin exchange.
I did read somewhere that the reason that they haven't really kind of clamped down on it completely is they want the main control of the network with miners and the exchanges to be in China.
Yeah.
So they can kind of keep a kind of some measure of control over the whole system, because obviously mining is dominated by Chinese companies as well. So
I think I wrote that on Facebook or something. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they like it.
Yeah,
I
it
don't
could.
know where I read it.
It could go the other way. I mean, they could double down. They could see, the writing on the wall. There is a global shift happening. The global world reserve currency is kind of up for grabs right now. It's going to be something other than the dollar at some point. They were recently inducted into the IMF's candidate for a new world reserve currency, which is the special drawing rights. Bitcoin is the anarcho-capitalist alternative to that, and who knows, maybe there are people in China that are forward thinking enough to say, hey, if this Bitcoin thing happens, we want to have a chunk of it when that takes place.
I mean, to use an analogy, when the Berlin Wall came down, there was already a sort of coming down of borders beforehand. People were finding ways through. So similarly, if they close off the interface between a certain currency and Bitcoin, then presumably you'll still have the ability to change via other currencies. But obviously you'll lose a percentage.
Yeah, it's like Jurassic Park. Nature finds a way.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably true.
Jurassic Park. This is nature.
We're not going to be eaten by dinosaurs? Okay, that's good.
Just thanks.
All right, let's move along here, guys. Let's see here. All right, here's Vinny Lingam chiming in. Is Bitcoin a bubble? Not unless it goes more than 2,000 USD by March. And this was a Cointelegraph article that was picked up based on his Medium article, which I'm going to talk about also in a second. But when Cointelegraph asked him why he has that opinion, Vinny attributed it to Metcalfe's law. This hypothesis affirms that the importance of a network is equal to the number of connected users in the network. So a network is ever more valuable when an incremental node joins the network.
And the number of the users squared.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. The number of users squared is the utility of the network grows exponentially with each new user.
So a user is a holder of Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This case,
So each user of Bitcoin and the value of the network.
Well, and you can imagine if you have a hard time understanding that concept. Imagine, another Facebook coming along. It will be very difficult to unseat Facebook because everybody, including your grandmother, already uses Facebook, and so the network effects make it very hard to switch to something else. Bitcoin enjoys that dominant position today. It's really the 800-pound gorilla in the cryptocurrency space, and therefore very difficult to unseat, and therefore with a limited supply it should be valued higher as demand grows. And so he's saying that it's not a bubble if it stays south of $2,000, and right now we're right around $900.
If you click that link, I don't know if you can.
Let's see.
There's a valuation done.
I don't think this is going to go to this browser. Anyway.
I wonder if you can click the picture.
So I'm curious. This is kind of related to an article that Vinny Lingam published on the 4th of January. Bitcoin, commodity, store of value, or digital currency? Anybody have any ideas on this? Like, what is Bitcoin?
I'm sort of regarding it more as a commodity.
It's acting like a commodity now.
I don't think it hasn't gained that much transaction as a currency for buying and selling things. Yeah, I mean, it's still at a very early stage. I think it's too volatile to be a currency. So, I mean, I see it more as a kind of speculative commodity.
Yeah, I think, when a
and
new
store of value.
Right. Well,
That's what he's saying.
that you can consider that a continuum, like commodity on the left and digital currency on the right, and we move, as there is adoption and as people see it in different ways, it becomes a different thing. Of course, these are metaphors. A commodity used to be pork bellies or gold or some physical thing, a silo full of wheat or something like that. Bitcoin is a digital thing. It's like so it's you're trying to use an old word to describe something new, but it is useful to think of it in that way, especially when at the beginning there is no real intrinsic value. It's a speculator's object. So when
it's kind of closer to, I mean, it's, people are always saying that it's a bit like digital gold. I mean, there are some differences about 10,000 years of history. So it's it's kind of at the very early stages of becoming something like a digital alternative to gold at the moment. But I mean, I think it could go anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, I think even Satoshi made allusions to it being, a digital gold or trying to approximate the gold commodity when he thought of Bitcoin originally. But Willy and I discussed this last night, but we kind of feel like Bitcoin is moving into that store of value category, which does put it into a different category. It's no longer just a speculative instrument. Those people who bought Bitcoin in 2013 probably see it as a store of value. They don't think that we're going to go back below $30, right?
Yeah, unless
Most people don't think that Bitcoin is going to go below $30.
China completely outlawed it, I'd be very surprised if it went down to that.
Right, and likewise, all of the merchants that have been accepting Bitcoin since 2014 or something, when we got started here, also see Bitcoin as a store of value, especially when compared to the Indonesian rupiah, right? The Indonesian rupiah, depending on when you count, but has been up and down 20% since I arrived here in 2014, and it's not going north; it's going south, right? It's losing value over time. So those people who have been exposed to Bitcoin during that time see Bitcoin as a store of value. And I think this little experiment that we're doing in Bali is trying to turn it into a currency, and we're not there yet. The people who get involved with Bitcoin do so based on, for philosophical reasons. And, even the merchants that are totally on board, if 100% of their income was in Bitcoin, it would not be ideal because it goes up and down so much. Imagine if somebody did a banner day a week ago when Bitcoin was $1,100 US, sold several $1,000s worth of product, and then at the end of the day, a week later, they've lost, what is it? What was the swing? 30%? It was a lot, from 1,100 down to 800. Imagine they have to pay their suppliers, and their suppliers don't take Bitcoin or don't price their things in Bitcoin. Then you've lost, right? It's not useful as a currency because of circumstances like that. But when we still have to press forward, like we have to get there from here, and that's why we promote these things. And the merchants here in Ubud, they don't have 100% of their volume at Bitcoin. They have like 1% in Bitcoin. So they don't, especially because they appreciate it as a store of value, they don't mind if it goes up and down in a few days because they're not forced to cash out. And who knows, if we had 1,000 merchants in Ubud, maybe that's 2 years down the road. But if the volatility is lower, then maybe we'll get to that third stage. But everybody's talking about this article, and everybody's on Twitter and online are asking themselves this question: where does Bitcoin fall? Commodity store of value or digital currency? It's a useful way to think about it. It's also a useful way to think about Bitcoin competitors like Ethereum or Monero. You're definitely not seeing those as a store of value yet. It's way behind.
If you think out 140 to 2140,
yeah,
that's a different question.
Speaking of volatility, here's the volatility figure that we usually look at. And down in the middle of 2015, JP, when you were talking about a good time to buy Bitcoin, we were really steady. We were approaching below 1% volatility according to this calculation, and here we are in the midst of some wild and woolly days, where we're, according to this calculation, we're up over 4%. Again, that's not ideal for a merchant, but our man Will here has got a different idea about volatility. In fact, did you guys see this article in his article in CoinDesk? Yeah, when did this get published, Will? Just earlier this week?
Just I think on the 5th.
Yeah. Well, and you've got a new volatility graph. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, it's just the same graph there, but like I've just superimposed a whole lot of other data on it. You can hover over that stuff. Hey, it's live. Yeah. You can just go to that site, and you can even zoom in. But like that.
So tell us what we're looking at here. There's a lot going on here.
So the red line is really
this is the volatility here, right?
60-day volatility calculated.
So moving average.
No, that's the standard deviation on price for 60 days.
So each point on the graph is the trailing 60-day.
Takes the last 60 days, yeah, at that point, and calculates the price standard deviation, which is volatility. It's calculated raw. If you look at,
and this is a regression line through those. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, but like that's the real amount. Like the other side, I did this because the other site had the wrong calculation. Like everyone cites the other graph, but it's the wrong value. And then that's the average trend regression line. This is the trend, and the bubbles are the daily volume traded excluding Chinese exchanges.
Okay.
And then background gray is the price logarithmic.
This is the price up here.
And then
on a logarithmic graph.
Yeah. And then blue lines is your fiat comparisons.
So these are the normal Forex US dollar euro cross.
Yeah, and so US euro is the fat line, and that's the biggest traded volume market in the world for Forex. And then
USD euro.
Yeah. And then USD NZD I threw in because that's one of the most volatile, but New Zealand being a small country. So that's like should be the range of the most stable to the least stable, and you can compare that. And the trick is to try and figure out when Bitcoin is going to approach Forex, which that green line is the peak volatility regression line coming down.
Peak volatility. So my interpretation is that this wild up and down red line is moving down, which means Bitcoin is becoming less volatile. And this regression line is representing that trend towards less volatility. And the less volatility is coincident with a rise in transaction volume. So these bubbles are getting larger and larger, and that's driving the volatility down and down. And it's looking like it's all going to converge right on your head here in 2019. Which is when, if we have our ducks in a row and we talk to enough merchants and we have enough Bitcoin 101 classes, then we should be ready in 2019 to actually use Bitcoin as money here in Bali, right? So we've got a little bit of time. I think we can relax. We can go to the beach tomorrow. We don't have to be ready until 2019.
What's the unit of the transaction volume? Is it Bitcoin or is it dollars?
It's US dollars traded daily.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting, because the pitch to accept Bitcoin right now is store of value. We were talking the other night.
Yeah.
You don't go and say, everyone's using this for currency, you should accept it like Visa card. You say, you should take Bitcoin because if you hold on to it, it's going to be worth something in a few years.
Right. Yes.
If they had scaled Bitcoin and enabled it to be more currency-like, would that have made it less of a store of value or made it less of a commodity? Do you think it's, is there a plus side to that?
It's just getting the volatility down. I mean, if you can transact at instant, right, instead of 10 minutes, that helps. But it's still, people aren't going to spend your currency if it's going up and down by 10% each week. So
do merchants on their companies that do instantaneous conversions to fiat for merchants.
Yes. Yes,
I mean,
indeed.
I suppose that doesn't deal with the overall, you know, if you're a merchant, as you were just saying, if you're a merchant, values going up or down 10% in 1 week, even if you can go to fiat immediately, it's still very unstable.
Well, it's the consumer side. I'm not going to charge a wallet and spend Bitcoin. So then the merchants don't have anyone accepting. So actually what happened was in 2014-15, heaps of merchants jumped on and no one was buying us.
Nobody was spending.
No one was spending Bitcoin.
That's part of the problem we're trying to solve here.
So, yeah.
Yeah, basically there's just a philosophical reason to walk around with Bitcoin and spend it because it's an extra hassle. You know, the volatility is crazy.
And why do you want to spend it? It's so hard to get and it's going up in value.
That's right.
Your fiat, right?
Yeah.
So.
But now that the merchants see Bitcoin as a store of value, they're willing to accept payments at a discount. So like we're going to the Onion later and they're offering, if you pay with Bitcoin, you get a 10% discount. Now we're able to move the consumers into a position where maybe they're like, hey, if I just get some Bitcoin in my wallet, I can live my life at a 10% discount.
I was at Bohemia the other day and they offered me a 10% discount for cash and 10% extra for paying Bitcoin.
No.
Oh, really? I hadn't heard that one.
So most people pay in what, credit card or something? What do you pay full price? Credit card or
so
what,
they're charging a 10% premium?
Well, just for me because
just for you. Since you're such a
I
pain.
maintained the price that they had agreed to include the 10% service charge. I was making a fuss about that. And then when I asked if I could pay in Bitcoin, it's well, you've got to pay the 10% as well. So it was a rare.
Oh, okay. A special case, an edge case. All right.
But sorry, just to interrupt, the merchants you speak to, the prices are all not in Bitcoin anyways, right? So
Yeah, they're rupiah prices.
exactly. So it's not, it's priced in, it isn't really, like technically they could convert that immediately back to rupiah because
Yes.
they have no liabilities in Bitcoin, right? So
Yeah.
they need to have staff payments and rent and everything paid in, so that it's not really feasible as a currency.
Yeah, I mean,
you know what
I mean, yeah, we're not there yet.
Yeah.
And luckily there are services that allow merchants to hedge their bets or not subject themselves to the
But
volatility.
your experience is that most of them are just keeping the Bitcoin and holding it because it's such a small percentage of their revenue.
Yeah, they have that option. Although Indonesian law obligates them to convert to rupiah.
Oh, really?
It's still a novelty.
Yeah.
Okay. But there's some things that you buy, like electricity.
Yes.
Yeah, there are cool use cases where you don't have to go to a toko to buy your Pulsa, or you don't have to go to a toko to buy your electricity. These are compelling little use cases that aren't possible otherwise.
Has anyone tried buying Pulsar with a credit card on the iPhone app? It doesn't work.
Oh, really?
It just keeps declining. I have to use Bitcoin.
You can buy.
I find it helps if you actually pay your credit card bill.
It was a debit card even, you know? I tried all my cards.
So how do you do that? I mean, when you log on to the
Ask her if you tried it.
Don't ask me.
it didn't work.
We're asking where can you buy it?
Toko Bitcoin.
Toko, if you go to
TokoBitcoin.
tokobitcoin.com, you can buy Pulsa and electricity.
It's great.
Yeah, it's really good.
Brilliant. It's better than
Ooh, credit card.
It's
Okay.
So Toko Bitcoin Don't sells. go to bitcoinscam.com.
Toko Bitcoin sells other stuff, right?
I'm a little bit against
game
Bitcoin being
credits.
used for several things because the more people are using Bitcoin, the bigger the fees get. I want the fees to stay down, so I want people to start using it less, just by really intermittently, you know.
Yeah.
Like, you know, everyone should like just use it no more than once a week.
There's
and
a
then the fees
balance, though.
stay nice and low. Fees
No, I think it's wrong.
Well, we're going to talk about the fees in just a second. I think we should explore that a little bit. Well, let's move on. We're going to talk about fees in just a sec. Okay. Sometimes you look at this Bitcoin clock, and I thought this was an interesting moment to talk about it because look at the minute hand here is about to strike midnight. Does anybody know what that means on the Bitcoin clock? When the minute hand strikes midnight, this is when the difficulty changes. So Bitcoin has a bunch of computers that participate in the Bitcoin network, right? And the number of computers and their computing capacity is what creates what's called the difficulty for Bitcoin. So this is recalculated every 2 weeks. right? And this is what allows Bitcoin to stay on the 10-minute schedule, right? Every 10 minutes, the entire Bitcoin blockchain agrees with itself, and the system itself creates a new block, and somebody gets the block reward and all the fees for the transactions that happen during that 10-minute period. And every 2 weeks, we take a look at the last 2 weeks, how much computing power was contributing to the Bitcoin network, and then we create a new difficulty value, right? So all of those miners in China that are chunking away at the Bitcoin blockchain, they are creating this difficulty figure, and in a few more Bitcoin blocks, that figure is going to be adjusted. Now, we talked about the eventuality or the possibility of China just saying Bitcoin is illegal tomorrow. Let's say that they raided all the Bitcoin miners tomorrow, said Bitcoin is illegal, they shut down all the Bitcoin mines. Well, if that was at the beginning of a 2-week period and you lost half of your Bitcoin mining power, then we would no longer be getting new Bitcoins every 10 minutes. If the Bitcoin network had half of the mining power halfway through this cycle, this 2-week cycle, then we would no longer be getting Bitcoins every 10 minutes. Well, I mean, on average you do. 9.7 minutes, isn't that what you...
On average, it's about every... Well, yes, it's 9 minutes. I mean, because
Really, it's 9 minutes, not 10 minutes? Exactly?
That's significant. That's a 10% difference. I mean...
Well, but I mean, that's the goal, right, is to have it 10 minutes. And that's why the difficulty adjusts, because if a bunch of new computing power joins the Bitcoin network and all of a sudden we're finding blocks every 7 or 8 minutes, then it adjusts and then it goes back towards 10 minutes. But the interesting thing is it happens every 2 weeks, and a lot can change in 2 weeks. I mean, India outlawed their currency overnight, right? Governments can make policy decisions and things can change. And it's just an interesting thought experiment to think, what if China decides Bitcoin is illegal? Half of the Bitcoin mining power disappears overnight.
I mean, I mean, just because they make it illegal, they're not going to suddenly switch off the machines, are they?
I don't know.
And
It's a thought experiment, really. But
it's 2 weeks if the blocks are 10 minutes apart.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so it's a number of blocks.
So it's a double whammy. Like, you wouldn't be getting new blocks every 10 minutes, and it would take a lot longer than 2 weeks to adjust the difficulty.
This is one of the failure scenarios of the block halving. They thought that if the miners got non-profitable in that halving, and all the miners start shutting down, you know, it might start taking hours, and you get this runaway where there's no throughput, and the whole
right, and then it becomes useless. And
well, someone was complaining that their transaction took like a long time recently. Now, even if the mining power suddenly dropped to a quarter, and then the average confirmation went up to therefore 40 minutes, it still doesn't sound like that bad anymore, given the complaints about confirmation times as it is. It's like, okay, big deal, 40 minutes.
Well, then you'd be getting a new block every 40 minutes for the next 2 weeks.
It gets worse because
longer
the
than 2
mempool's
weeks.
overflowing at this point. You know, you can, if you're doing it every 10 minutes, you're at 98% capacity, 99% capacity. So then, it just runs away, and people start using the network.
It could also be that the price falls and electricity becomes very expensive with all the miners. It's not worth for the miners as well. But I think if this happened, you bring the software a bit more to have a different time calculation, so you speed it up.
Well, luckily we haven't seen those kinds of wild shifts, even when the block reward gets cut in half. So I doubt that this eventuality would arise, but a lot of people don't understand this little aspect of Bitcoin, so I thought I'd take an opportunity
There's been 2 halvings so far. Why hasn't Bitcoin failed at least twice? I mean, the first halving I can understand because no one was using it back in 2012, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But the 2016 halving, Bitcoin should have like broken and died then. Why
All the
not?
miners prepared for it. They had years and years to prepare.
Yeah, it's part of the algorithm. We don't have to wait for Janet Yellen to have a press conference. These guys,
The market priced in the halving,
Well, we're not
so
waiting for a Trump tweet.
the price doubled in that lead up, and therefore they had no change in profitability.
I actually have the let me see, where's that graph? Here's the miners' revenue. And look, this is the halving, right?
You can see it, the market correcting for this upcoming halving. So they started to make more profit as the market priced in the halving. and then it crashed with the halving, and then it fully got priced in. Well, how many months later?
6.
6 months later.
Yeah.
So it sort of started, 9 months earlier?
This is in dollars, yeah?
Yeah, this is in dollars.
So in Bitcoin, it would look quite different.
Yeah, it goes half. 25 to...
But it would be
It's a step change.
but it would be interesting to look in terms of Bitcoin. But and when the volatility is down to almost nothing, then it'll be interesting. You know, let's say in 4 years the volatility is very low. Will the halving still go as smoothly?
I've got that graph. Hey, it looks like this. First, it decays because this is inflation rampant. So it starts to look like this, and it steps down at halving, and it slopes down because the decay on inflation, and it's doing wiggles as well because that's the fees on top, processing fees, and yeah. So
I think the fact that Bitcoin is using ASICs probably saved it, because if they'd been using GPUs, surely the miners would have just switched to an altcoin, you know, or something like that. Whereas ASICs are only good for Bitcoin, so maybe that played a part in.
I think something that was played part was that the mining hardware, it was improving really rapidly before. So I mean the size of the die, the nanometers was the ASICs was falling. So, but now it's pretty much caught up with the CPUs in the size. So I don't think we can expect this kind of increases in efficiency of the ASIC miners in the future.
Right. So this should be the great democratization of mining. We should see a golden age of mining decentralization, because we're no longer seeing the step changes in technology, you know, making hardware that's 6 months old obsolete.
what is the life cycle? 6 months?
Well, it used to be like even less than that. And there's even speculation that China has some proprietary hardware or algorithms that are allowing them to dominate the mining space. But now that it's being commoditized, it will make more sense for them to export that technology than to reap the rewards of having an advantage.
So maybe Venezuela will take over mining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not inconceivable.
Yes, they've got very cheap electricity in Venezuela.
So let's get free.
So I wanted to talk about the fees a little bit, because we did have, I had somebody contact me on Facebook. Let's see if I've got that here somewhere. Bear with me for a second. Anyway, there it is. This guy Ibrahim contacted me on Facebook. He's like, I have a transaction that's been frozen for the last 35 hours. Can you help me? And I took a look at the transaction, and right now the transaction is no longer on the blockchain. But when I went here previously, it showed the transaction. It showed when it hit the mempool, and he paid about 56 Satoshis per byte, right? Because the transaction fees for Bitcoin are related to the size of the transaction itself. And you can see right now, if your transaction doesn't have 80 Satoshis per byte, then you can expect delays, right? And this person, because of the sustained mempool overflow during that time, his 56 bytes per Satoshi for his transaction never cleared. And right now, it's like it never happened. Transaction not found.
According to that, though, it should have. I mean, there's transactions getting through in sort of what, between 12 hours and.
Yeah, like right now, it's saying that let's see.
So that's suggesting that 56 Satoshi per byte
should take.
how long?
I think.
It was different.
Oh, there is no time.
Somewhere between sort of almost 50-50 between under 12 hours and over 12 hours.
Right, but in his particular case, it never made it into a block.
He was unlucky. I mean, maybe what wallet was he using?
He was using the blockchain.info wallet. But I think I've never seen this happen before, so I think it's significant. It must be happening all over the world, where somebody submits a transaction, they don't attach the proper fee, and it's not the end of the world. The funds revert back to the sender. But you can imagine a case where somebody goes to Mark's restaurant, they pay for a hamburger with Bitcoin, and they set their wallet up to have 0 fee, and then it disappears. Yeah, it goes back to the tourist 3 days later when Mark can no longer
get
get to them.
Go back to the sender. The transaction is still enabling the receiver to receive them. So, for example, if the receiver chose to rebroadcast the transaction enough times, they could still get that money. You know, weeks later.
But you could spend it again with a fee when the transaction disappears.
So the receiver can rebroadcast.
The receiver, anyone can rebroadcast the
You got
transaction.
doesn't you broadcast
Right,
it.
true.
If you spend it with a higher fee.
Well, unless
Then
those
transaction
inputs for the transaction are used successfully and confirmed in a block, that transaction is still spent. And someone only needs to have captured it, you know, when it was on the network and rebroadcast it.
Yeah, that's
to
true,
make it
because
possible.
it's bit.
So there's no
Yeah.
guarantee that it won't be
That's
spent.
true.
The only way to guarantee that it won't be spent is to reuse at least one of those inputs in another transaction that does get converted.
So you're saying that someone could build a mempool, catch everything,
Yeah.
and when it overflows, just rebroadcast.
Yeah, so
Yeah, okay, that's pretty cool. Didn't know that.
Well, and this is we're in a bit of a gray area right now when it comes to merchants, because we're doing this we're trusting people to do this correctly, and that was okay, you know, for small figures and small transactions, and now we're kind of in a bit of a gray area where we need to do a little bit more sophisticated analysis of the transactions that show up, because especially for smaller transactions and especially for wallets that aren't calculating the fees correctly. Yeah, it's not ideal. But like I said, this is the first. I think I always knew it was theoretically possible, but this was the first transaction that I saw hit the mempool and then not make it into a block.
What wallet was it?
Blockchain.info.
Can I just ask a question? The fees, network fees, where does that actually go to?
The fees are claimed by the miner who finds the block and sticks those transactions in. So the miners have an incentive to scan the mempool, take out the most profitable transactions, stick those in the next block, and keep on trucking.
Can the merchant pay for the fees or part of the fees or?
yes, there is a thing called child pays for parent. What that means is, now I don't know if they put this into a lot of the nodes. I think they might have done. But what it means is, if the receiver wants to increase the priority of that transaction, then they can simply spend the new inputs with a sufficient fee, and then the miners will recognize that.
Is that live? I thought that was just an idea that child pays for parents. Is it?
So that's an alternative to replace by fee. Replace by fee is the same transaction, but with a higher fee. Child pays for parent is a transaction that's built on that transaction that makes it worthwhile for the miner to mine that original transaction and the new transaction. So that allows the recipient to effectively pay to receive it.
Really?
So that one that got lost in the mempool, if the recipient captured it, at any point in the future, as long as he hasn't invalidated it by creating another transaction that spends those inputs, that recipient could potentially do a child transaction along with the original transaction, and it would get
well, and all of this creates a lot of uncertainty around transferring funds.
Sure.
I mean, I dare not transfer any fund. I always do a test transaction. I mean, I'm not a technical person, so I don't understand what you're talking about. So I'm quite nervous about. I mean, I've been using Bitcoin about 3 or 4 years, and I'm always a little bit. I don't understand the underlying technology. It's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, though, like with a small transaction, you could get a different result than if you had a large transaction, because a small transaction might take just one input.
Yeah.
But if you do a large transaction and you've got 20 inputs, that could be a more expensive transaction.
Sure.
If your wallet doesn't calculate it correctly, it could hang.
But there's a lot of abuse, obviously, because someone might think, oh, it got lost, it's being returned back to me. And then 6 months down the line, they can suddenly say, oh, it went through. And like, I've now...
Well, it could be double spent in that time as well. Like someone can't they send it again to someone else? And then when the receiver tries to do the child transaction, they pull it in, but it's already been spent.
Yeah, you couldn't do it. Like I said, if the input for that transaction has been used elsewhere, then it can't be done. But if it's someone who doesn't use their wallet very often and just thinks, oh, that's abandoned and just carries on and doesn't even touch their wallet, and blocks, they I'm trying to think of an example where they could get done by this. I'm sure there is one where they think the money's not been taken, so therefore some other product which it was in exchange for has now gone back on the assumption that the transaction didn't go through. It could still go 3 months later. And like depending on the value of that transaction, obviously the bigger the actual transaction, the more worthwhile it becomes to do a child-pay transaction.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, it's something to be aware of, and it's a function of this period of time where the blocks are just jam-packed full. Here's the blocks. The mempool is like 16 megs right now. Every block is there. Look, it's 998 kilobits, 997 kilobits, 998 kilobits. All of these are just jam-packed with transactions, and the mempool is, you can see how much of the mempool is cleared by each block and what the backlog is. I don't know exactly what the nominal figures are, but you can tell just that it's like maybe 5 or 6 times. Maybe the mempool is like maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 megs. So each block is 1 meg, and there's 8 megs worth of transactions that are trying to make it into the next 1 megabyte block.
You can check this size if you change the transaction to second size. Next to latest transactions.
That makes it look
Yeah.
quite good.
Where?
It makes it look like
I
the
just
mempool
can't
is
see
only
it.
going in the
Drop
next 6
down.
blocks with, like, literally
Drop down?
hours
Right here. Right here.
Change the size.
This one?
Size.
Size.
Those bars, transactions and values.
So you can see that the mempool is like 45 megabytes
At some point.
around the 2nd of January. So, and there's another graph here. Check out, I like to see what are the oldest transactions in the mempool from January 7th. You can see there's no transaction fee associated with these transactions, but they're hanging out for 3 days.
This website's a bit silly because what's the point of even hanging on to those transactions? They're never going to get confirmed. So
They can get confirmed if you use an accelerator. You pay a
What if
miner
child
to
pays for
include-
parent? Yeah, you can pay a
Oh,
minor.
yes, you're right. Of course, yes, that would.
No, but you can also pay a miner to include the transaction.
Okay.
Or you can use
Okay,
this
Have you
Pay intermediary central party.
Anyway,
It's easy. I can't keep up with it.
This is why we come together on Tuesday nights to stay on top of these things. Think about these things together. This is what's happening now. This is the state of Bitcoin. I think, let's talk about segregated witness. This is something that Will brought to my attention. Congratulations to Litecoin for getting segregated witness completed. Litecoin? What's Litecoin? Litecoin's not Bitcoin. What do you make of that? What do you make of that, Will? Why is it important that Litecoin has segregated witness? I don't even have any Litecoin. Why is that important?
It's a testnet, right?
Testnet. Litecoin has a testnet. For those of you who don't know, Litecoin is a fork of Bitcoin with some of the original parameters changed. I think they use a different hashing algorithm, and they've got a different total number of coins. And but it is a blockchain network that has value. It's like a value chain that maybe we can do some testing on. And by the way, I think Litecoin is up on this news, right? Like 4 or 5% since they made this announcement. And if you've been involved with Bitcoin from back in the day, Litecoin was the first fork of Bitcoin that had any momentum. And they were saying, well, Bitcoin is gold and Litecoin is silver, right? And they have a faster block time, and they have a greater overall supply. But then it kind of like lost favor. But there is miners creating new Litecoin all the time. There is it has a value on the market. And here they're testing segregated witness. Now,
Sorry, what is segregated?
I'm sorry. This is a proposed solution for the bottleneck, the Bitcoin bottleneck, right? Which will allow the witness that's being segregated, and thus the name, is pulling some of the transaction data out of the transaction so that the number of transactions can increase without increasing the block size.
Because it enables the Lightning network, which is like more.
Well, I think you need segregated witness in order to implement Lightning Network, and that will also create more overall
It's
throughput.
Lightning network off the blockchain.
Yeah.
It is.
That's right.
It only reconciles with the blockchain periodically.
Right, so allowing more transactions to happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we are not there yet. I think I've got another graph here. Here is the adoption of segregated witness on the Bitcoin side. They have already implemented it, but it needs to reach a critical mass in order to be adopted, really adopted, and it's hovering right now around, what is that, 25%? And I think it needs to get to like 95% before.
Oh, wow.
So
It should also be noted that the hard fork increasing the block size is actually higher than segregated witness today.
oh, the percentage of people who are voting for.
Requirement for activation is activated 50%. So
What's that one? Is
The,
that
The hard fork for a 2 megabyte block.
That'd be interesting to put the two graphs together to see how they're.
It's like a race to. Well, I'm just curious. I mean, I know not everybody can think about this question, but what do you guys think of a hard fork to 2 megabyte blocks? Yeah, you're happy about that.
I hate the fact that you have to choose one or the other. I would like to see you go the Ethereum way, where you've got a Bitcoin that stays limited and a Bitcoin that's scaled, and actually have both merged, both mining power.
So you're okay with the blockchain diverging, two blockchains?
I think that's the best way, because then everyone's happy. Everyone gets to support, the market gets to support whatever coin they want. But for one, like it's like Voldemort, Harry Potter, like one has to die with the currents of whatever. And I don't like that on the best place.
It all comes back to a Harry Potter metaphor at some point. Well, anyway, this is the state of Bitcoin today, where we're not there yet.
We know that.
Who's that handsome devil? You ready for your number of the week? People are tired of hearing me talk. No, we do extra time these days. We do an hour and a half.
I'll give you a computer.
You okay?
You guys know what that is? Should do. Yeah, it's market price going back to 2009, which was zero, of course, back then. So I just want to know, who bought Bitcoins before 2011? Nobody. 2012?
All right. Thanks, Ron Daniel.
2000. When did you buy your ones? When
both
did you bought in
Wow.
2012?
What are the odds of that?
Did you buy in 2012?
No. Almost. Like I was like ready to pull the trigger late 2012, but
Right. 2013?
yeah, 2013.
Who's 2013?
that
was December. I keep thinking 2014.
Oh, you're December 2013.
December
Whoops,
2013.
after the crash, actually.
Oh,
I didn't
yeah.
even know about it until it boomed, and I was like, "Oh, that looks really interesting." So, what? 2014? Anybody? 2015?
2015, luckily.
2016? 2016? 2017? Okay.
No, there's no machine.
All right. So, who wishes you'd bought earlier?
Thus the store of value argument. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so let's have a look. Next, how do I get the next tab? All right, cool. There's a slide. Can I click in there, and how do I actually
Take your cursor over here.
let's see? How do you use a computer? How did you? It's on screen, right? And where is the screen?
It's a bit, don't move it too fast. It's
Oh, yeah, there it is. There we go. Why can't I just do it? Yeah, that's good. So this is the red line here is annual return of Bitcoin. So if you bought Bitcoin at if you bought at this stage, which is actually a year earlier, you would have realized
1.8 million X return.
no, 1.8 million% return.
Whoa.
So divide by 100 to X. But yeah,
That's today's value. Will.
that's back then at that value. So this is the percentage return you. So let's just.
So if
Compared to the value today.
If at any point in time you bought it on that date, that's the return you'd get.
Yeah, like you would have seen 1 year prior. Like this is the historical rate of return for the last year at this point was 1.73 million %, right? So
if you invested $1, then you'd have $1.8 million.
no, divide by 100 because it's percentages.
Oh, so $180,000.
Yeah.
So let's just.
That's not a bad.
I mean, if you look at
bought that
2012, let's go. Let's go to 2012. 2012, 50,000% return down to here. It's about 8,000% return. You know, if you bought here, you're at
15,000%
return. That's wrong. It's got to be wrong.
That's 50%.
Oh yeah, this is percent return, 15% return. So this is, yeah, that's
25.
definitely got a K, right?
Yeah.
So it was pretty risky in the early days, right? And there's this thing as an investor is you want to invest in risk-adjusted rewards, you know, risk-adjusted.
So early days Bitcoin, it was high risk, high return.
High risk, high return, right? So, like, I keep saying, if you say Bitcoin's got a chance to go 1,000x, and what's the chances of it for, say, 1,000x? I bought Bitcoin in 2013 because I thought, oh, this could go to maybe $500,000 per coin if it rivals gold. And what's the chances of achieving that? That would have been, maybe it's 1%, maybe it's 10%. If it's even 1% chance of rivaling gold, and back then it was $500, and so you're talking 1,000x return, 1,000 times return at 1 in 100 chance of achieving it. Your risk adjusted return is 10x over maybe 10 years. So that was probably an okay investment. So you want to look at, you know, if you have the opportunity to get that, you'd make that investment decision as many times as possible, diversify. And as you diversify, you're likely to hit that without just having all your eggs in one basket. So this is what it looks like. This is 90-day risk-adjusted return. And so let's take a look. Well, first thing I've noticed is that we knew that these were both scams, right? This was a computer bot on Mt. Gox buying $50,000 a coin every 10 minutes.
So for those of you who don't know, back in 2012, there was only one really real Bitcoin exchange. And there was a scandal at the time called Willy Bot. No relation, right, Will?
Wasn't me.
Sure.
Wasn't me.
That was driving the price up because it was one bot buying from another bot, buying from the same bot, and they were bidding each other way up. Meanwhile, the rest of the world was watching, thinking that that was real activity driving that price up, and that ended up being a scam. So it's important to note that at that time. That gray line is the Bitcoin price on a logarithmic graph, right?
Yeah.
When did that happen?
This is dates down here. 2013 and late 2013. And if you look at it, it's actually a steady-ish graph if you ignore these two bubbles, right? It didn't actually deflate to the normal market value before the next pump went. And you'll see that in these two peaks. And it makes me think that this was early days, tiny little market, pumpers and dumpers creating an artificial bubble. Look at that kind of peak. But so this is all kind of the era between probably before 2014. That was the era when Bitcoin was too small, and it was in the era of market manipulation. I'm going to zoom down to real levels. Real levels. There, right, excluding the two bubbles. And this is what it was like investing in Bitcoin, risk-adjusted return back in 2012. So it's around 5 as an index. And this is what it's like now. And if you can just make out the orange line, that's a 200-day moving average on it to try and smooth out this graph. But yeah, it's telling us now is actually a good time. It's the opportunity now, risk-adjusted return, is the same. It's not
Because the
better.
risk is lower, because you got less volatility and more liquidity.
Yeah. You've got the volatility's dropped so much, right? But so if you were to say if you're going to run parallel universes, parallel universe 1 is Bitcoin moons and doesn't crash in 10 years. You'll probably find that 99 parallel universes you lose, right? Back in these days, with this high risk scenario. So if you ran if you could make like 100 bets across many different alternative investments of that return, you'll find that on average, you'll get the same return now in 2017 than you would have in 2012, which is, it's like now's about as good a time as any. Especially if you consider Bitcoin's kind of like very unique in this it's kind of once in a generational sort of investment opportunity, and you don't get to diversify over 100 to be sure of it. So now is better because it's lower risk. Yeah, so that's something I wanted to try earlier this week, and then I tweeted it, and Mr. Art Blockchain. They do a lot of research. This came out of their report, and that's Bitcoin's risk-adjusted return over different time periods. This is being the past 6 years, this being the last year, and this is the last 3 encapsulating the bear market. And this is compared to all the other asset classes: US equities, US bonds, gold, real estate.
Lower the risk.
What's that?
So closer to 2.0, lower the risk.
No, the higher you go, the more return you get.
Okay, that's
Risk adjusted. So, like oil is very speculative, it's very risky, and it's been negative returns. Plus, you got to rate it according to its risk as an investor. So it's outperformed the market just about every single year.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, look at that.
But
So
everything seems to have jumped at the end.
So everyone in Asia should just buy Bitcoin when they need rupiah.
yeah, kind of. You're still risking a lot. The absolute risk is still a lot, so you want to try and diversify. I mean, you'd probably buy a bit of this, but then you want to buy a little bit of other stuff in case this actually dies. Black Swan event could kill it, like a bug, new maths. So
Quantum computing.
Chinese government.
EMP.
yeah, EMP, internet being shut down by Trump.
Trump broke the internet.
Yeah. In which case, buy gold.
Yeah.
Gold and oil look the same.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Gold is highly manipulated.
Too bad it's not a store of wealth anymore.
Oil is political.
Yeah,
Gold and oil trade.
real estate. This is government controlled, government controlled, government controlled, government controlled by currency.
Government manipulated.
Yeah.
I mean, this is all manipulated. Bitcoin could be said to be manipulatable, but probably isn't within interest yet for countries. Yeah. Anyway, that was
So the upshot is risk reward analysis. If you think that you missed the Bitcoin boat,
We didn't.
you didn't.
there's still,
It's probably better now than
But-
it was.
this is a risk adjusted assessment. You shouldn't just put all your money in Bitcoin thinking that's the best investment of all these, because it only works if you have a diversified portfolio. Because there's still, 10 years from now, who knows if Bitcoin will actually live or not.
But yeah, like I got into it 3 years ago. Was it 3 years ago? I put 2% in, 2% of my investments in, and it grew to, I don't know, maybe 6%. But then lately, looking at how stable and mature the ecosystem is, I went up to 15%. So I, effectively put at least double of my initial investment into Bitcoin.
And
Because the risk-
that's why you're pumping it right now.
The risk went down. No, that's you.
At least you're transparent.
So yeah, and then I did the graphs. Afterwards, and I realized because I should have done it before, but then I was like, oh yeah, that's right. You know, if you look at the graphs, it stacks up.
All right, guys. Well, that's a good note to end on. I think we're in a very weird Bitcoin period. I think we hit a little bit of a chunk of time during our time tonight where it was a little bit negative, and Will backed us off the abyss, gave us something to be optimistic about. We are going to continue the conversation at the Onion. So we're going to head to the Onion tonight. 10% discount if you pay with Bitcoin. And don't forget, we do this every. Oh man, there's so much that we didn't get to talk about tonight. We'll have to do a supplemental. Birds and Indonesia and China. Sorry guys, we'll have to do a extended time. Anyway, we get together on Facebook. Join our Facebook group. That's where we get all the ideas for the stories and the things that we discuss. We've got the bitcoinsinbali.org website where we have the classes listed. If you want to come to the class on Saturday, go to bitcoinsinbali.org and look at the class tab. Hubud.org is where we meet every week. Every Tuesday night at 5 p.m. local time, we come to Hubud.org. They give us a cool conference room to meet in. So if you're listening online, join us live and in person at Hubud.org. Of course, we are on Twitter, #BitcoinsInBali. You can follow me. My name is Gary at DykstraNet. And you can follow our man, Mr. Willy Woo, at DangerMouse117. That's it for tonight, folks. Thanks for coming. We will see you same time, same channel next week. All right. Thanks, folks. Everybody know how to